Welcome to Fruity Knitting. This is episode 74. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Andrea.
We're just back from recording the 2019 Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and we think we've got a fantastic program lined up for you today. This is the third time that we've been to Edinburgh to cover the festival, and so the challenge for us was how to present the show in a new way.
So last year we interviewed some vendors and we took you on a tour through the medieval city centre of Edinburgh, and we also interviewed the founders of the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, Mika and Joe. And this year in this episode we have 4 mini interviews with really highly contrasting and very interesting vendors, as well as a feature interview with the designer Jenn Steingass. Jennifer designs the most beautiful and extremely popular stranded yoke sweater designs, and she was invited over to be one of the guest teachers during the festival. So today in our interview with Jennifer, she shows us a selection of her designs and she talks about how she does all her yoke shaping and how she works with colour. On top of that, we are starting a brand new segment, and in this episode, the aim is to give you a deeper understanding of Scottish culture, because we take you to a tailor kilt maker to learn more about this very, very handsome garment and the skill that goes into making it. And you may even see one of us wearing it, the one who's got the better legs.
Yeah. So they're the special segments that are coming up in this episode. We're also going to give you an update on our current projects. Our daughter Madeline's going to drop in to say hello. But first up, we're going to share our highlights from the festival and we're going to show you some of our purchases.
So I'm going to start first. We actually go to the festival to work. So we turn up a couple of days early so that we can coordinate interviews with our guests outside of the time that they themselves actually have to be working during the festival. And so when the festival finally starts, we spend most of our time just going around and taking footage of the general events. And then in the evening, we have to organise and collate and prepare and categorise
and back up
all of that footage so that as soon as we get home, we can start editing the footage. Yep. So that's kind of a brief idea of the work side of our trip. And I'd have to say, so for the highlights, what was surprising to me was how much I really genuinely enjoyed meeting our patrons. That was a real thrill for me. And I think one of the reasons is I'm actually quite isolated in our work here. It's isolated and it's fairly routine. And apart from the live events that we do have with our patrons, the only sort of feedback we get is through social media. And we all know that social media just presents quite a warped view of reality. So it was a genuine pleasure and highlight for me to be able to meet and talk in person, get to know on a little bit, a small basis, and to thank our patrons. So thank you so much to everybody who came up and said hi. That was really great. And I'd say another thing for me, which I really enjoyed, was getting to meet some of the guests who we've had on the show who I've never met in person before. And this is another interesting phenomenon of modern media and our society, is that you can develop relationships, genuine relationships, without even meeting anybody. And for me, when I'm working together with a guest and we're preparing the content of an interview, I do feel like I'm connecting with them and that I am getting to know them somewhat. So it is a thrill to be able to see them in person if there is that opportunity, and to give them a hug. So that was also cool.
Yeah. Last year we met Pia and Dennis Camerborn, and we had the pleasure of meeting them in person again this year. Many of you will know that Pia and Dennis produce the very beautiful Swedish knitting podcast Camerbornia. As Andrea said, being a YouTuber is slightly crazy and it can be very lonely. And it has its stresses, I think.
Yeah.
And so it's really nice to speak to people who do the same sort of thing and exchange your stories. We all went out to dinner again. Last year we went out to dinner, and this year again. And we really feel like we've got a close connection to Pia and Dennis, so that was really lovely.
Yeah, it's nice to not only meet people that you can laugh about the craziness of the kind of work that you're doing, but also to feel that on another level you actually really connect very deeply. So that was very special. We had a blast, a fantastic evening together.
Yeah. So, one day we would love to get over to Sweden to visit.
Yeah.
We have to figure out how we can manage that tour. In the vendor interviews coming up, in the introduction sequence to that, you will see some footage of the four of us together. And that footage was actually taken by their daughter Ella, who is just as talented in film and photography as her parents are, I would say.
Absolutely. She did beautiful footage. She's a very talented girl.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so now we're going to show you a few of our purchases. We don't normally talk much about purchases, but we did come home with a varied assortment of goodies, so we thought we'll give you a quick look through. Sunday was the last day of the market, and there was a special event on Sunday with only 25 vendors, and that was called Make Wool. And it was right at the end of that event that I actually spotted the Scotch Tweed store and bought this very beautiful tweed material to make a skirt for myself. The Scotch Tweed is a family business. It's based in Selkirk, which is in the centre of the Scottish borders, and they produce very beautiful tweed and tartan fabrics. So I bought 1 metre 40 of this tweed, and as you can see, the background has a beautiful beige and blue twill with coral and burgundy stripes. And what's really great is that the lady told me that you can put this in the machine and machine wash it on a wool wash, which is fantastic.
Yep.
And the other thing which I was completely astonished by is that the price for this was £27 per metre, and that is an amazing price.
Yeah, well, that's really great value for a skirt.
For a,
Isn't it?
a
And I
pure
love the
wool,
colours.
yeah, pure wool skirt. And I was just seeing it would actually go with this top.
It's got the burgundy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've got another tweed present too.
Yeah,
what have we
so
got?
while we're talking about tweed, I have to bring this out. This was actually a present from one of our viewers. Very practical and thoughtful, I thought. So you can see it's a stainless steel hip flask and it's covered in a small piece of Harris tweed. So I think it's beautiful. I thought we could take that with us on our hikes as a sort of emergency ration, part of our emergency kit.
Keeping warm.
Yep, so we'll take it up on Mount Snowdon. And I thought since it is a good Scottish tweed dust, we really should be heading off to Scotland to the mountains.
Do you think we'd manage Ben Nevis?
A bit of Ben Nevis, yeah. Biggest, what is it, the biggest mountain in the UK, I guess?
Yeah.
Because Snowdon is the biggest mountain in England and Wales.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
We've done the summit of Snowdon about 6 times, haven't we?
Yeah. So we'll have this along with us while we're waiting for the helicopter.
We'll be set.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of you will know Katie Green, and Katie Green is an illustrator, a podcaster, and a committed and talented knitter. We actually featured her way back in episode 27 in our Knitters of the World segment. Well, Katie had a pop-up shop during the festival, and you could buy her illustrations in the form of cards and zines. Zines, if you don't know, are just self-published magazines, badges, and we bought this very beautiful big, and I need your hands, Andrew.
Hang on a sec.
Beautiful tea towel, and if I counted correctly, it has, I think, 47?
76.
76 different British sheep breeds on it.
That's heaps.
Katie has drawn each breed, and they're grouped in categories of mountain breeds, luster breeds, fine wool, medium wool, cross and naturally coloured breeds. So it's really cool to be able to read through all the names and discover a few that you probably have never heard of.
So that actually means that washing the dishes is now an educational experience.
Yes, very educational.
That is brilliant, isn't it?
And apart from that, we also bought this very cute badge of amongst Lochton sheep by Katie as well. And coming up very soon, you'll see some footage of Katie in her pop-up shop. Now, we did buy very minimum yarn purchases. I came back with this one skein of Devonia from John Arband. It's a DK weight. It's really beautiful. The colour is Nightshades. It actually goes well with my tweed, you might see. So that's good. Now, that's to go with this same skein of Devonia DK weight that I bought at last year's festival. I think they pair up really beautifully, and I'm planning a very exciting project for Andrew that's going to push his skills in completely new directions.
To the limit.
To the limit.
Over the edge.
So Andrew's going to knit one of Woolly Wormhead's hats. Woolly packs a ton of interesting techniques into her very original hat designs. We haven't yet decided which design Andrew's going to do, but we're considering the ones that you can see in front of you. And these all come from her Elemental collection, and they include short row colour work, sideways knitting and grafting in garter stitch. Your techniques are just going to
sideways knitting dolls
completely take off.
Yeah,
that's cool. Okay, so apart from that, I knew that I wanted to do another Louise Harding design. The one I'm wearing is the Louise Harding design. It's called Aquila. I really love just how elegant and simple it is, how beautifully fitting it is. So I thought I definitely want to do another one of her designs. So I'm going to knit this design here, which is called Dove. In fact, I might just put a bigger picture over Andrew for you to have a look at. There's nothing complicated whatsoever in this design, as you can see, except that there's just a ton of stocking stitch because it's in lace weight yarn. So, but this is one of the designs that I just simply want to wear, so that's why I'm very motivated to knit it. And so I'm knitting it in her beautiful 100% lace weight yarn. I'm going to do the body in this purple colour, which is called Iris, and I'm going to do the stripes in this orange colourway, which is Rowan. And I think it's just going to be so luscious and luxurious. I can't wait to knit it up and have it sort of for the summer months. Yep. I think it's going to be a really beautiful garment.
I can see it getting a bit of wear.
Yeah, definitely. And I love this colour combination. It's very luscious. Do you like it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, so, and then there was just one final thing that I brought home as well, and that was a very interesting knitting kit here, and it's a Malika jewellery making kit. I've never done this before. The kit comes with instructions. It comes with the brown coated copper jewellery wire and crystal beads, and you knit it up on 2.25mm needles. And it says in the instructions that the process is less like knitting with wire and more like moulding or shaping wire with knitting needles. So I thought I should do this once. I should give it a go, and I'll do that in the summer months. So it's either going to be a choker, or you can double it up and wear it as a bracelet. And my design is called Lakeside. Here's a picture of it. I think it's very pretty, and yeah, I'm excited to try that out.
I think that's fun. Yep. Coming up now is a brief sort of short overview of the festival, and we've also got the first 4 of our vendor interviews. So enjoy that, and we'll be back.
Annetta from Pink Hazel. We're in her booth. She's set it all up. It's looking stunning. Her bags are really well known for being super well made and also incredibly beautiful. So it's cool that I can get to talk to her today. So Annetta, tell me a bit about the kinds of bags that you make and what you've brought along for the festival.
Okay, so I make all sort of bags for knitters for all the needs because I'm myself a very keen knitter and have made bags accordingly. So I have bags really from small little zipper pouches for the notions, over needle cases to project bags. Well, in all sizes. That is maxi project bag, and this year would be my Edin bag. That's the largest I do. That has a finish with oilskin, and I think my bags, I try to put a lot of work into them, so they're all handmade, and I really try to finish them off very much in detail. So we choose strong colors often, but it's linen fabric with cotton. So although the colors are strong, they do also have a certain mattness to them, so they're never garish.
This is oilskin, isn't it?
Yes, so I have got, mainly I use dry oilskin so that the oil doesn't run into the bags, but sometimes I also use real oilskin. But I think this time I've only dry with me. And inside the bags, I finish the bags off with high quality quilting cottons, and I put zippers inside and other inside bags, so that you can also keep some notions inside your bags.
And I also see some of the straps are made out of leather, aren't they?
Yes, all the Edin bags have got the small handles, which can sort of be hung over the shoulder, and some of the bags also have the smaller project bags also have leather. But I try to coordinate colors. So, but we also have long straps which can run crossbody.
And do you have a special new releases or something that's completely new for the Edinburgh Yarn Festival?
Well, we've chosen a special fabric which we think just totally echoes Edinburgh, and that's this. They are the tartan, which is really, so it's a fully oilskin bag, and we've chosen a special nice brown leather with it, and they have this really weathered, lovely look to them. So, and I think so far the response from people was very, very positive. So I'm really excited to show those tomorrow.
They look fantastic. So what else are you looking forward to doing while you're here? Is there any other vendor or activity that you're really excited to check out?
Well, okay, I love the festival so much, but this year my local yarn store, which is Cross and Woods, they will be coming, and the girls have got such good taste, so I think their stall is going to look stunning, so I'm looking forward to see that.
Cool. And are you going to any of the extra evening events like the Big Net or the Ceilidh?
Sadly not, because usually we know from experience we are so shuttered in the evening that we really just about make it to the room, often not even to dinner. We just order something in because we're so tired. Although the evening events are fantastic.
Cool. Well, I actually need a new jumper size or sweater size bag, so I'm definitely going to have a good look here. Yes. So thanks so much, Annetta.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It was nice. Thank you. It's an honor that you interviewed me. Thank you.
As many of you know, we love to go to Snowdonia to take our holidays over the Christmas break. And I'm here now with Paula from Moldview Yarn. She's a natural hand dyer, and she lives just outside of Snowdonia, which is in North Wales. And the name of her company, Moldview, has taken the inspiration from a beautiful mountain that's nearby. So Paula, can you just tell us a little bit about the landscape that's inspired your natural dyeing?
Mm-hmm. Well, as you said, our view is of Moldvamo, which is a beautiful mountain. You can see the seasons changing, the colours are very dramatic, and it was that really that just inspired me to try and replicate those natural colours onto the yarns that I've come to love as a knitter.
And you started off just using pure natural plant dyes, not extracts. Tell us about that.
So nettles, oak galls, oak leaves, cones, things like that. That was easy when I was doing just a small quantity of wool. But now that the quantities have increased, I now use extracts, so organic certified extracts of plants, barks and flowers.
Okay, and what have you got here? Because that's a real natural plant that's been used, not an extract, isn't it?
That's right. So this is eucalyptus, which is from a local plantation. Normally they supply to the floristry industry, but as they have a lot of waste, that comes to me and I can dye colours with it.
And how come they're all different? Is it the same plant or have you dyed them differently?
It's exactly the same eucalyptus bark. I start off with the same bath, and then what happens is as I change the pH, you get different colours. If I add iron, the colours go much darker and a little bit duller.
tell me about this. This isn't actually soap to wash with, is it?
No, this is a very special organic lotion balm that I've developed. For many years I've made it for my own family, but it's so effective. I've changed the packaging. We're relaunching it at Edinburgh this year in beautiful new packaging that makes it clean and hygienic and easy to use. It's all butters, all oils.
And it's just for your hands to make sure that they don't sort of scratch up on the wool.
Exactly, to keep them soft, but it's also really fast-absorbing butters that I use, so your hands don't stay greasy. You can get on knitting as quickly as possible.
Okay, so Paula, you've got some really interesting bases that you're working with. So maybe just talk about some of the bases and then tell us what the colours are.
Okay, so this one over here is a local Welsh mohair. It's quite silky. It's very different to the fluffy type of mohair that we've gotten used to knitting with, but it's very special, small quantities, and it's local to us.
And what colours are these?
So the pinks typically dyed with lac. Use logwood for the purple, set with iron. It keeps the colour better. And this one is also with the eucalyptus that we saw earlier on the minis. So the design is by Anna DeVoe. She's along avec Anna on Instagram. And she designed this called the Romy jumper. It's got a beautiful little scalloped hem and a nice boxy fit. It's a combination of two of our yarns. This is our felt base, which is a kid silk dyed with lac. And this is our Welsh mule 4-ply, also dyed with lac. But you can see how the colour comes out differently depending on the base that I'm working with.
They're really, really beautiful. Well, thanks so much.
Pleasure, thank you.
I'm now at the Toft stand and the owner of the Toft company is Kerry. Kerry is a crochet designer and you can see around us we've just got the most fantastic animals here. So she's going to tell us a little bit about them. But I heard that your company started actually at your parents' alpaca farm. So give us a little bit of an introduction to your company, what you do, and then tell us all about the crochet animals.
So Toft is a company that's 13 years old, and yes, I started it was just me, and my parents had a herd of alpacas. So my original brief back then was to decide what we were going to make from their fleece or who I could sell their fleece to. Here I stand 13 years on, and we are a big global company. We do knitting kits and crochet kits, and we are an independent company. We sell directly to customers, but we also are stocked into quite major high street stores as well. So my path started with yarn, with some alpacas, but it's come a long, long way since then. I love crocheting and knitting now as much as anybody else, even though I didn't to begin with. So I've learnt to crochet and knit and learnt to love this craft as much as everybody else along the way.
And all these beautiful animals, I mean, they're not all beautiful, they're super cute, and there's some crazy ones too. They're all your own designs, so you taught yourself to crochet and you just started designing spontaneously, or did you have this concept of little animals?
So I made the first batches of Toft yarn 13 years ago, and I'd knitted until then. And then almost by mistake, 6 years ago, I was pregnant with my son, not pregnant by mistake, learned to crochet by mistake. I was pregnant with my son, and I decided I'm not going to do any work. I'm just going to sit down, I'm going to stay at home, and I watched a YouTube video that taught me the British double crochet stitch. That's all I learned, that one stitch, and I was off. All of a sudden, I could create 3D shape in a way that I couldn't with knitting. And since then, I've now made over 500 different animals, dolls, monsters. It's a really huge collection just using that one stitch, a double crochet.
That's so commendable. I've only just started to crochet, so that's really exciting. You've got a whole lot of different sheep breeds here, and you do them in kits. They're all natural yarns, I can see. So just tell us maybe a beginner's kit and intermediate crochet and advanced. What have you got?
So Toft really specialises in beginner. So we do videos that go with everything. It's all about making this craft bigger. So we generally try to encourage people that can't do it already to get involved. So everything is levelled. So a level 1 project would have no colour changing in. You're just handling one ball of yarn and learning that basic stitch. One of our level 2 kits, for example, like one of the sheep that maybe has black and white in them, that would have a colour change that you're contending with, like Lisa the Black-Nosed Valet. So you're moving between colours. And then a level 3, you'd be having to concentrate a little bit more. So one like Dominic the Swaledale, you'll be doing backwards and forwards colour changing in those legs as you go along, and then working some back loop as you go through the horns.
He's so gorgeous, I'd want to start with him.
But that's the nice thing. The nice thing really is the fact that even though we say level 3, they are all beginner. There really is nothing complex about what we do. The whole concept is to get people new to crochet.
Okay, so tell me, is this amongst Lochtan or what is this one?
So this one is Tobias the Hebridean. Yes, the Hebridean. So this one uses 3 of our colours. And Toft, we specialise in natural colour spectrum. So it's 12 colours in the whole range, right the way through from a natural cream through to an overdyed black. So the animals, they just lent themselves towards that spectrum.
Okay, and you actually go to a lot of yarn shows globally, don't you? In fact, I think you said you've done 7 in the last...
Yeah, I've done 7 in 6 weeks. So we do a lot of shows as a company. It's the most important way for us to grow this craft. So it means that people can touch the yarn. It means we can teach people to do it, as we are here at Edinburgh Yarn Fest. So we are running drop-in classes throughout. And it also means that I can see what else is going on in the industry. So I'm there and I can meet other people and then develop product in reaction to what people want.
Well, I think it's really cool that you've got a little centre that people can sit down and start learning the basics. That's really great. Well, thank you so much for being on Fruity Knitting for a short time.
Thank you.
I'm here in the booth of Countess Ablaze and I'm with the Countess herself, who's sometimes known as Lindsay. Lindsay, it's great to be here with you. Tell everybody a little bit about your yarn company, about your branding. You're based in Manchester and you've actually got a shop there. So give us a bit of an introduction to your whole business.
Okay, so we started in 2011 at my kitchen sink, like so many dyers do, and now we have a 3-storey dye studio in Manchester city centre, which has 2 floors of retail boutique space. The only yarn we sell is our own, so it is not like a traditional yarn store. It is solely for what we do. We sell all over the world. At the moment, we don't wholesale. Everything has been kept in-house the entire time until now. So,
Okay, and now tell us about branding, because branding is a really big thing.
yes, it is. It's really, really important to me about standing out, but not doing it in a way that really catches people off guard. Like today here at Edinburgh, we have set our booth up to be a nuclear bunker. So it's very dystopian, and my team, who we call Blazing Squad, they were all going to be dressed up quite dystopian, camo, ripped everything. So yes.
So I reckon it must be a lot of fun working for you.
I hope it is. I hope it is. To be honest, sometimes there are moments where they're like, "Oh no, what is she doing now?" A
little bit wary, are they?
Yeah. They do worry that I'm going to go off piste again and do something completely crazy. So
Okay, but you do sort of have a bit of a rebellious kind of out there image. So tell us a little bit about that, and how is that reflected in the colours that you like to dye?
I like to wear black, always black, and always wigs as well. Originally, it was because I had alopecia, and then when the hair started to come back, I was like, no. I'm sticking with the wigs. That's very firmly me now. So the wigs have stayed and the black has stayed, but with black comes neon. The best way to show neon is with black clothing. So that's where that comes from, although I do still dye a lot of black. Some of you may have seen my black fades, fade kits, just skeins of black. Is my cheeky nod to the fade craze.
Actually, that's quite cool. I'll have to check that one out. So just show a couple more of these neon colours that you've got here.
Of course. So here we've got a couple of speckly type ones. This one's called Fahrenheit 451. When we do speckled colours, we like to use at least a minimum of 6 colours just to get going. However, one of the things we are doing is, as you could probably see a little bit here, we're starting to move away from speckles. Whether that we go long term with that, we will see, but we're starting to move away from speckles and experimenting with other techniques.
That sounds exciting. Now, I have heard that you're really meticulous with your dyeing procedures. So just tell us a little bit about what's important to you in creating a really good, well done hand-dyed yarn.
Saturated colours are my thing. I really, really love saturated colours. And the problem is, with the level of saturation, it's very, very easy to get a yarn that will bleed. The dye will bleed because the yarn can only hold so many dye molecules. The way, this is my insider thing that I've learned, and is through lots of experiments, is to build those layers up, those dyes in layers, and make sure they're steamed for a minimum of 2 hours on a low setting, nice and steamed, and you will get minimal bleeding that way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. So rest assured you will get really well-dyed yarn here. Okay, now there's one other thing I want you to quickly talk about, because you've studied classics and ancient history, which I think is super cool. And sometimes you've named your yarn ranges from names that refer back to the ancient literature. And I've also heard that that's had the side effect of introducing people to this literature. And I think that's really great. So just say something about that.
Of course. So especially early on in my business, I really, really focused on the classics and ancient history. And I even started a yarn subscription club called the Classic Society, which ran for 2 years. There was one subscriber who, this was amazing. She loved what we were doing so much because it would come with a booklet full of info and bibliography for further reading. And they decided that they were so intrigued by it all that they signed up to a university degree in classics. So that was amazing, but
super cool.
It is. So we don't really do the classics and ancient history quite so much because I don't want to be rehashing the same things all the time. So we've sort of moved on a bit now and evolved into more counterculture politics, dare I say, and basically just being really rebellious.
Okay, well, that sounds interesting. Now, you've got something that's very appropriate for politics right now, and I think it's absolutely exclusive to this Edinburgh Festival. So tell us it, show us it.
Okay, right. So because I have one swear pass, thank you. So this is our Edinburgh colourway. It is called Brexit. We have skeins of this on Lady Persephone sock yarn, which is Blueface Leicester and nylon. We have those here at the show. I had decided actually that because so many people saw this on social media and wanted it too, we have open pre-orders on the website as well. So it appears that this may be a popular one.
Well, you know what? I think you actually provide therapy for people because they can buy one of your rebellious skeins and just get that little bit of their shadow out there.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So sometimes we've had emails from customers who have said, normally I'm really quite conservative and, nobody would ever think of me as being rebellious. But when I buy a skein of your yarn, that is my inner rebel coming out. And I think that is wonderful because a rebel doesn't have to look like this, doesn't have to have the fiery hair or the clothes. It's all in thought and small. And sometimes it's just in small, very small actions. So
that's really true. And sometimes, surprisingly enough, the most conservative looking people are really rebellious.
Oh, really?
Sometimes be, anyway, we're off topic as you can see here. So back to knitting, but it's been really great to talk to you. Your yarn really stands out. Your booth really stands out. It's fantastic. I love your outfit.
Thank you.
So I really hope you enjoy yourself here. There's another thing I want to just point out. It's actually rare to find you outside of your shop in Manchester, isn't it? It's your first time at a yarn festival and here.
Yes, so I did do wool in Dublin last year because I was drunk and agreed to it, which is actually a true story. I did decide to do Edinburgh this year, not just because Mika pretty much held me against the wall last year and begged me to do it. That's not just part of it, but because at time of recording we may be leaving the EU next week. Then I have a team and wages need to be paid and I have rent to pay. So the reality is, as a business owner, what can I do to see us through the transition period of Brexit? So I thought this would be absolutely perfect.
Good. Well, I hope it really works for you and thank you so much for being on Fruity Knitting.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
Yay! That was a lot of fun. We hope you enjoyed meeting those extraordinary vendors. We do have a few more mini vendor interviews which we'll showcase in the following episode.
Yeah, it was a total blast to interview the Countess Ablaze herself in her nuclear bunker with her exceptional yarn. And we are really thrilled to announce that Lindsay is offering Fruity Knitting patrons a generous 20% discount off all of her yarns in her online store. As you saw during the interview, her colours are extremely luscious, and Lindsay is a highly meticulous and skilled dyer. So that's a really special offer. Thank you very much to Lindsay and to her Blazing Squadron team.
Yes. Countess Ablaze colourways are really stunning and very, very luscious. I think we should get a couple of yarns, skeins, because they will also go really well with woolly wormheads projects.
For my sideways knitting.
Yeah, sideways colour work. I'm really excited about your project.
Great.
Okay, so I'm going to give you now an update of my Sculpted Frost by Linda Marveng project. While we were away and since we've come back, we've had the bare minimum time to knit, but some progress has happened. If you can help me hold it up.
I'll do my best.
So I have finished now both of the front panels and sewn them on together. You can see that's how it's going to sit, like that. If I turn it round to the back, you'll get to see the back lace panel again. And you can see it's just a lovely canvas of lace with an A-line shaping in the sort of skirt or drape of the top. And I've also done, so it's knitted in pieces, and I've done a seam here in the stocking stitch section. Maybe you can see there. Okay, so turning it around to the front again. The next stage is I need to pick up stitches. Get all these needles out the way. I need to pick up stitches along the vertical openings here of the front, and then the diagonal, and then right around down here. So that's the next thing I have to do. Because as I've said to you, I'm working on a completely different gauge to the pattern, I have to work out all the maths myself. So what I'm going to do here is just pick up 3 stitches to every 4 rows, just basically that ratio, and I'll do it both on the vertical section and the diagonal section. And so once the stitches are all picked up, I do a little tuck, which is going to look something like the hem that I showed you on the garment. That little is like a decorative tuck that'll go right around, and then from that you knit garter stitch, and that's going to be sort of like a panel of garter stitch coming around here with some extra short row shaping so that it turns into a shawl collar up the top. So we might have that finished by next episode. That'd be good. And that's my update.
This is my current project. We didn't get to introduce it in the last episode. It looks very simple, but it's actually going to turn into quite a complex intarsia project. We're running a knit along where you can knit any design from the designer Martin Story, and this is actually my entry in it. It's a design by Martin Story. It's a child's jumper, and it's actually going to have an intarsia motif of a tiger's head on it.
Yes, this is quite a strange story. I'll tell you very quickly. I have a younger sister who is 14 years younger than me. Her name's Fiona. And when she was a little girl, her absolute favourite musical to watch was The Lion King. And she would watch it almost every day or whenever she was allowed to. And she would have watched it at least 100 times. And she would always cry in the exact same scenes. It was very cute, and it was obviously a very deeply moving movie for her. Well, her love affair with Simba the Lion King continued as she grew up, and she named her first daughter Simba Kaya. So Simba is now 4 years old. She is terribly cute. She also has something of a little lioness about her, the look of a lioness about her. They came over and visited us last summer, and we spent some time with them. Here's a picture of me and Simba in a boat rowing together. So when I was looking around for a Martin Story project that would expand Andrew's skills, I saw this design and I promptly fell in love with it. I got very excited. I bought the pattern immediately, printed it out and presented it enthusiastically to Andrew and suggested that he develop his intarsia skills and knit it for Simba. Well, he agreed, so I think that very evening we went out and bought the yarn. And then it was only after that that I noticed that the picture was not a head of a lion, but a head of a tiger, and that the pattern was even called Tiger. So I am definitely not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So poor Simba is now going to get a beautiful jumper with the head of a tiger, and she will be Simba the Tiger.
King. Yeah.
The Tiger King.
I'm obviously starting with the simple part of this project. It's a whole lot of stocking stitch. This is the back. I'm also going to do the sleeves, which are also plain stocking stitch, and after that will come the challenging intarsia component. This is the Sandness yarn duo. It's a 50-50 cotton and wool blend. It's nice to work with. This is a rosa cream, sort of a rose cream color, and the dark blue for the motif is coming up. So I'm sure Simba is going to love it. Her Simba the Tiger King jumper.
She'll remember you as the uncle who knitted her a
That's
tiger.
right. It is going to live on, I am sure.
My name's Howie. I make kilts.
My family name is Doig. It's an old Scottish name, and my family actually migrated from Scotland to Australia in the 19th century. The name Doig refers to the clan of the dog, and the Doig clan comes under the Drummond tartan. What I'm wearing today is actually the grey thistle, but it's similar to one of the Drummond tartans, I think.
Correct.
So can you tell us about the history of the kilt?
Well, the kilt, very separate from tartan, is the garment. Now, I believe the first kilts were really Egyptian 7,000 years ago, and even the pharaoh's garment is referred to as a pharaoh's kilt. We move on in different parts of the world, like the Vikings wore wraps of fabric around them and then fabric around the leg, but maybe looked like trousers, but were unbifurcated clothing. Yep. So we look to the Far East Asia, all around the world, men wore skirts. So, Scotland, the garment evolved from that big wrap of material, which was like a sleeping bag, and if worn properly, could actually have pockets in it.
Yep.
So then we had the Jacobite Rebellion, 1745. The kilt was outlawed and banned. So many Australians actually went to Australia from Scotland after wearing the kilt and being banned and outlawed and treated as a criminal. So it was outlawed for 48 years. You were not allowed to wear a kilt.
Okay.
And then it was reintroduced into the Black Watch Regiment to kind of ingratiate the Scots back into the British military and give them their own identity. The reason why it was banned in the first place, because it gave too much identity. Yeah. So that identity was literally given back, which was a kind of a renaissance and a special time. And then it kind of evolved and evolved through the Victorian period. Sir Walter Scott had a massive hand in the 1822 visit of King George. So it's been more of a regal, aristocratic garment, unfortunately, in the last couple hundred years. It's seen as being for the wealthy. So it's only in the last 30, 40 years, average guys like us can wear a kilt to parties, weddings, and feel like we're having really good fun and we're celebrating our heritage.
Okay, and I think this is something that you're particularly interested in, is bringing back the kilt into more everyday use.
Well, I grew up in the industry. We're fourth generation. My dad being a master tailor, I very early got involved in the family business. I was selling the socks and the garter flashes at 6 years old in Atlanta, Georgia. At 18 years old, I created my own brand called 21st Century Kilts within my mum and dad's traditional business. I'm now independent, filling in for my dad. And we all get on much better now. I'm able to concentrate on more modernicity and making the kilt an everyday piece of clothing again, whereas my parents' business, Jeffrey Taylor, are able to concentrate on the more formal, uniform, pipe band sort of clothing, which is what my dad has always specialised in.
One thing that I noticed when I tried on a kilt is it's actually a really substantial garment. There's a lot of material in here. Can you tell us about the construction of the kilt?
Well, the construction of a kilt and how much fabric in it and what you're feeling is what makes it a man's piece of clothing, and many women, unless say they're in pipe bands or country dancing, find a kilt quite uncomfortable. Whereas for a man, it feels comfortable and natural, like a big heavy dressing gown after a shower. You know, there's a feeling of freedom in a gown. Yeah. So a kilt gives you that freedom, but very much you can go out on a windy day and it's not going to blow up. There's 8 yards of fabric, which would be the length of this building. Well, certainly this part of the building. If you put 8 yards of fabric into any clothing, it's going to be substantial. Yep. And that's what people love about kilts, is the swing and the motion of when walking. And also at the front of the kilt, there's 2 aprons, so it's quite a barrier. And you do feel masculine wearing it.
Yep. I know the pleats are really important. Maybe you can show, you've got another kilt here, maybe you can show us how the pleats work in the kilt.
Yeah, so this is a brand new kilt. It's all has its basting and pressing, and this doesn't come out until the customer actually tries it on. Yep. But it's all about where I can put my hand.
Okay.
That's deep. And what's most important is you take the front of the kilt and the patterns, and you take the back, and it recreates the pattern. Yeah. So you've got the stripes all worked out. And that, to me, is the beauty of kilt making. That the kilt makers, who are not tailors and not seamstresses, they're not machinists, they're hand-sewing kilt makers. It's a totally separate qualification. The time and effort and pride that goes into every kilt. It's kind of like your bloodline continuing. You know, hopefully we'll get you one day in a Drummond kilt. So this is a proper 8-yard hand-sewn tartan kilt, the likes you could wear from the rugby to a black tie wedding. Mine is more for cycling. I rode out here today. It's a poly wool. It has reflectors in the pleats. There's a full 8 meters to make sure it has a good depth. This pocket is detachable. Another pocket goes on here, pocket at the front, and 2 back pockets. So I can wear this with flip-flops on a beach to more shirt and tie sort of job. I mean, I have 10 kilts, 3 of which are denim, and some other black tie stuff. So that's my ethos, is a kilt can be a great investment, from flip-flops and sandals to black tie, any kilt. So tartan isn't just to do with its colour, it's to do with the actual pattern. It's called a set, S-E-T-T, a bit like a computer programming, which actually in weaving, the binary system was actually used in weaving very, very early on. Now, these tartans are all the Anderson clan. We have modern colours, muted colours, ancient, weathered, ancient, and modern. But they are all actually Anderson tartans. It's to do with the set. So that white stripe is maybe 10 stitches, and then the black is 10, the yellow is 6, 10. So it goes in a code you could make that blue block pink, but it would still be the Anderson tartan. So evolution-wise, this is all technically based on the Industrial Revolution and chemical dyes, whereas tartan originally, pre-Jacobite Rebellion, pre-Industrial Revolution, would have been vegetable dyes and very natural colours. If you think maybe of something like Lord of the Rings, an elven cloak, tartan would have looked more like that, a very simple check or a houndstooth, and it would have been the earliest form of camouflage. So Doig, the family name, connects to the clan Drummond, but also is known in Perthshire. So without going into the clan, you could just wear the Perthshire tartan. And then there's also Drummond of Perth, which is that one and this one here, that very orangey one. So that's the same tartan, and also modern colours, and there's also Grey Drummond, which is that one there, very, very handsome tartan.
Welcome back. That was our brand new segment where we plan to show you a diverse range of makers, and didn't Howie do a fantastic job as our first featured maker?
Yes, and didn't Dad look good in a kilt? Are you going to get one?
I am considering it, seriously. I measured. And I have to say, in Frankfurt, we've been here for nearly 20 years, Frankfurt and Offenbach. In that time, I've seen one person wearing a kilt. And he was clearly a tourist jumping onto a bus. I think he may have still had a little bit of alcohol in his body from the night before. That's what it looked like. He was a pretty jolly guy. But so if I do wear a kilt, I'm going to be the guy wearing the kilt.
Yeah. So would you wear it to our local cafe in Offenbach?
Yeah, because if I'm going to get it, like, they're pretty expensive. you want to wear it more often than just the special occasions. That's what I think.
Howie said that he only wears kilts now. I think he may not even have any jeans.
Yep.
He's got about 10 kilts. In fact, he rode his bike to the place where we interviewed him, and that took him about a 50-minute bike ride, and he was on the highway in his special thick kilt with the reflectors.
With the reflectors on it.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I really liked the way he dressed up Andrew's kilt with your brown leather jeans belt. I think that gives it a really good casual look.
Yeah.
And I think also you can wear kilts with hiking boots and thick woolen socks, and that's a really good look.
Yeah, that sounds good too.
Yeah. So actually, during the festival on the Friday night, there's a ceilidh, and there were quite a few men there wearing their kilts, and they do look fantastic. I think it's an incredibly manly looking garment.
Yeah, they catch your eye, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
I think we need to be moving to the UK so that we can go to ceilidhs regularly and you can wear a kilt.
Right.
Yeah? Done deal?
Move to the UK so that I can wear a kilt.
Yes.
Okay.
As you can see, we've got our daughter with us. She's joined us, popped in to say hello.
Hello. Yeah, so while Mum and Dad went to Edinburgh, I came here to look after our dog Jack, and I'm on a study break right now. But I still have one exam coming up, and then I'll have finished my first semester. For those who don't know, I study psychology at the University of Ulm in Baden-Württemberg, which is in the south of Germany. Yeah, and...
So tell us about your knitting. You haven't done a lot of knitting since you were on the show last time in Wales over Christmas.
It's been a full exam period, crazy. But last week I picked it up again. And so this is the Bresser, the beautiful Bresser by Marie Wallen that I've been working on. This is plain, but you'll see the yoke is really stunning. It's a stranded yoke design. You knit it in the round and from the bottom up. And I finished the body and I'm now up to the sleeves.
Just started the sleeves?
Yes.
Yeah. It is a lot of knitting in this, actually. I mean, you've had a big break from knitting, but it is a gauge of 30 stitches for 10 centimetres. So it's going to be it's almost going to look like it's machine knit, I think. And it's a beautiful design. So you finish the body and you've got to do the sleeves, and the yoke itself is quite deep. It starts below, you knit some of the yoke, the stranded part, before you join the sleeves together. So it's quite low. Yeah, that'll be good. And in case you're wondering, what Madeline's wearing, she's gone into my closet and picked out my Meadow Sweet by Alice Starmore, which actually looks really good on you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got to get on with the show, so you better
Get back to your study.
nick off and get back to your study.
Yep.
Have fun.
Okay.
Bye.
As I said earlier, it was a huge highlight and delight for us to be able to meet and thank our patrons in person. It is because of our patrons' financial support that the show is available for you to watch. We don't receive financial support from advertising or sponsorship, and we do need Andrew to join me full-time on the show as soon as possible because of the workload. He is planning to do that inside the next couple of months. So if you are a regular viewer, we really do need your support as a patron. Please take the time to go to the page and read about how you can support the show.
Yeah, you can find the link to that in the description underneath the video.
So coming up now is our interview with Jennifer Steingass. Jennifer has a very good instinct for creating very beautiful but casual looking yoke sweaters that everyone wants to wear and that just look great with jeans. Apart from that, she's very admirable.
Admirable, yeah.
She's very dedicated and hardworking. She's a quiet person but very strong. We were very impressed with her and think she's a great person to support. So we hope that you enjoy getting to know her during this interview. And we'll be back again very shortly at the end of the interview to say goodbye. Welcome to Fruity Knitting. I'm here in Edinburgh with Jenn Steingass, and it's the week of the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and Jenn has been invited over from Maine in the US to be a guest teacher during the festival. And we actually featured Jenn in our Knitters of the World segment way back in episode 16, and that was back in November 2016. And a lot has really happened for Jenn since that time. Her designing and teaching career has really taken off. But I think it's still fair to say that stranded colourwork yoke sweaters are her favourite things to knit and design.
Oh yeah.
Which is cool. We're surrounded with them here. So it's really cool to be sitting here with you in person. So thank you so much for coming on Fruity Knitting for the second time.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. So way back in 2015, Jenn took on the challenge of knitting 12 adult-sized garments inside of 12 months, and that was a fantastic achievement.
Thanks.
Yeah, and shortly after that, you started publishing your own designs, and those 12 garments were actually all Icelandic style garments. So what did you learn from knitting the same style of garments many times consecutively? Because that's also an interesting experiment.
Right. So I wanted to design, and up until that point, I had been just designing for my kids, or knitting, and then moving on to designing for them, but not really writing the patterns. And I joined the international sweater knitting group. It's 12 sweaters in a year. It's called INSWEMODO, International Sweater a Month Dodecathon.
Okay.
Sorry, it takes me a minute.
And it's on Ravelry.
Yes, it's on Ravelry. And so it's only sweaters. You can only knit adult sweaters, and the goal is to knit 12 of them in 12 months. So I took it on, and I ended up finishing my 12th sweater on New Year's Eve. Yes, they were all circular yoke sweaters. So I think I learned something different each time. It might have been about colors or fit. I kept kind of modifying and changing how each one fit. And I did a variety of gauges, sport weight, worsted, and DK.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So she did no cheating. There was no chunky or Aran weight. So that's a lot of knitting.
It was a lot of knitting. Yeah, and they were all bottom up, because most of the patterns then for yokes were bottom up. And a lot of times I was kind of trying to use a lot of colors all at once, which I found challenging. So over time, I think I learned more about how colors interact, and kind of had more preferences over time.
Yeah, okay. So your colour choices really evolved during the time.
Definitely.
And did you also figure out how to suit your own body best with shaping?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a different shape then too, so I kind of, I've changed kind of how I want a sweater to fit now as opposed to then. But it was good to learn to be able to fit my body according to my measurements.
Yeah, okay. So that's an interesting challenge if you want to take it on. So, and we've got lots of colour here that we're going to talk about later. But first of all, I'd like you to talk a little bit about shaping the yoke. And you might be able to see that we've got quite a selection of Jennifer's designs here. And one of her classes that she's doing during the festival is on how to shape the yoke. So can you show us the designs and talk about how you shape the yokes, particularly when you're using different types of motifs?
Right.
And then after that, maybe also talk about the short rows and body shaping options that people have got.
All of my designs are circular yokes, and I've worked them with a variety of construction methods. I've done top down, bottom up, and top down provisional, and they all have their advantages and disadvantages. For top down, we can start right at the neckline and work from the top down, and then we separate the body and sleeves after we do some short rows. But what's good about that is it's easy to try on the yoke as you go. So you can see how it's fitting. Is it too big? Is it too small? How's the depth? And then we can also try the body and sleeves on as we go and make sure it's fitting correctly. The one thing that I think is a disadvantage about top down is that we're just casting on the neckline stitches, and you might want to change that later. So one thing to get around that could be casting on those neckline stitches provisionally and going back and modifying later if necessary.
And do you actually have a favourite, top down or bottom up?
Top down.
Okay.
I do like it, yeah.
So what about the motifs? When you've got different motifs, you're restricted as to where you put your decreases or increases, aren't you?
Yes.
So how do you work it?
It really depends on my motifs, and I need to make sure that it's not going to be too small up top. So I kind of try to keep that in mind and increase as soon as I can while taking into consideration my motif. So here, I don't, I do some increases here and then I don't increase again until here.
Okay. So what do you know roughly what percentage of your stitches you have on already here?
Yeah, I have about 65% here.
Okay.
And then I kept it that much until all the way down here, which none of my other sweaters are that small through there. So to account for that, I kind of made the yoke a little bit looser, and it kind of fits down here a little further to account for that, so that doesn't get too tight up there. Because if it's too tight up there, it's going to push up and not sit correctly on your shoulders.
Okay, so the big problem often with yokes is that it's too small, is that right, across here? And so then it rides up?
Right. I think it's important to have positive ease in a yoke sweater, at least go for like 2 inches, maybe 4 or more if you want oversized, but negative ease in yoke sweaters isn't usually a good option.
Okay, cool. So that's that one. Now what about this one here? Because this is quite different, isn't it?
Right. This is kind of like a Shetland inspired yoke, and I wanted the top and the bottom to mirror each other. So I did some shaping here, and then I waited until up here and shaped pretty rapidly up to the neckline.
Is this top down?
This one is a top down provisional. So it starts right here underneath the yoke with a provisional cast on, and then the yoke is knit from the bottom up. And then that's unraveled, and the sleeves and the body are worked from the top down. So it kind of brings in the advantages of both top down and bottom up. So you're not like stuck with whatever you cast on like in a top down, but then you can also try it on as you go like a top down sweater.
That actually sounds like the ideal way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a little finicky. It takes a little bit of time. I think it's kind of tedious, but it's worth it. I really had to play around with the sizing for this one. I actually knit the yoke of this sweater 3 times or 2.5 times. And I had to figure out the gauge that would work for the sizing. So I wanted about 4 inches between each size. And it was definitely the most challenging design I've written to date.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything different about these designs where you've placed the decreases?
This one's top down, so there's increasing, and I'm doing it pretty rapidly up here, although it doesn't really look like it. I'm doing like double ones through here, like on either side, because this is the repeat. So I have an increase here and here, and then here and here again. And then I believe I have one here and one hidden in here.
Okay.
And then I think we're at the full amount of stitches.
Already done here.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're doing a really deep yoke, do you have any kind of things that you have to watch out for where you're
really deep yoke? I think those are really easy. So in the deep yokes I've done, I kind of have empty space up here. And I'm kind of increasing and shaping like I did on that one we just showed. And then I kind of increase pretty rapidly like up here. And then it's the full length. And those are in fingering weight too, which I think has a better drape. So it's more forgiving of like a deeper fit. And those are meant to fit with more ease to kind of, so that the yoke can hang downward.
Okay, that's cool. So if someone was wanting to design their own yoke, do you think it's easier for them to start with a deep yoke or just a little patterning?
Little pattern.
Little pattern.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Where you're just kind of like increasing up here in the main stockinette, and then maybe you have a strip of color work here.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And did you start like that, or did you jump in?
I didn't, and that's I had so much experience with the Icelandic style that mine go right up to the neckline a lot of time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So just can you tell us a little bit about short row shaping and body shaping options? So why do you need short row shaping?
Yeah, we need short row shaping so we can bring the neckline down a little farther than the back. So, because if you don't have short row shaping, it's going to want to go like this. when you sit,
Yeah.
especially. And it just has such a more comfortable fit with just a little shaping. So for this one, I wanted the motifs right at the neckline. So I just put my short rows across the back. So they're going across the sleeve, right here, going across, all the way back, across the second sleeve, and just slightly onto the front, past the armhole.
So quite low already, yeah.
Yeah. And there's 3 of these back and forth, and it raises the neckline by about an inch or 2.5 centimeters.
With only 3, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because we're going back and forth.
Yeah.
We're knitting and purling. Yeah. So it's about an inch.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe even a little more.
This one here, what have you done?
Yeah. This is a finer gauge, so I did some up top as well. Mm-hmm. Like right across the back. Just kind of, it's kind of parallel with the armhole, kind of how the other ones are. And then I also did about 3 or 4 back and forths across the back as well. And that's because this yoke is not as deep as the others, and the row gauge was so small, so I needed to add more.
Okay, so did you just guess, like if you're designing something yourself or moderating something, is it, and you're doing it bottom up, can you just think, oh look, just for safety, I'll put in a couple here, or is that?
Yeah, I think it's not. I think it's forgiving. Yeah. I'm not like, oh, it has to be this certain amount. It's kind of like, I don't know, cooking and improvising. Yeah.
It's not like baking, it's more like cooking.
Right.
Okay. Cool. So you could put a couple in here just for safekeeping, and then do the rest up here,
right,
if it works. Okay, that's super cool. And you don't do a lot of body shaping, do you?
I used to, and when I did, it was really subtle anyway. It was maybe just like 3 rows where I'm decreasing 4 and then adding maybe 8 stitches wider than the bust for the hip. Mm-hmm. But now I'm just doing a straight body and suggesting ease.
Okay, that's cool. Well, Jenn has also said that she really enjoys the challenge of trying to get colours to behave well together. So when you are actually swatching, although you don't swatch, I've heard, but we'll get onto that later. But when you're designing or coming up with a new yoke design, do you have a process or a few things that guide you to work with colours?
Yeah, definitely. So I start with my chart first. I graph it out on graph paper, and then I kind of decide what yarn would be suitable for this design. So it could be like the height of the actual chart. I might be like, well, that's going to need fingering weight because this is a lot of rows. So, and then from there, I decide on my colors based on the motif. Like if it's like, I don't know, something like this. This looked very wintry to me. So I think these are like icy. This reminds me of winter.
Yeah.
And my
So do you start with the body or the motif colours? Do you start with one thing first and then work off that?
Yeah, I generally start with the body color first and then the motif colors after, and it all depends on my chart. So if my body color is light, I tend to go with a dark neutral. Mm-hmm. And like here I have a dark body and I went with a light neutral. And I think neutrals help the other colors pop and shine. And I learned that towards the end of my 12 sweater knitting journey. And I really liked to add in a neutral. I think sometimes colors might look like they're going to work well together, and then I'll knit them and they don't. But if I bring in a neutral to kind of sequester them, then I feel like it works again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. That's cool. So this one isn't one of your designs, but was this one of the ones that you did during the 12?
Yes. This is Christmas in July by Countess Ablaze. And yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of colors here. I have the list on my Ravelry page. I can't even remember how many. It's like all from my stash, various scraps. And I love it. And I still wear it sometimes, but it was really time consuming to figure out these colors. Maybe it wouldn't be so much for me now, but I did a lot of ripping and a lot of changing. I love colorful sweaters, but I found that I wasn't reaching for them, and I like the more, I guess, basic colors. So yeah, over time, my preferences have changed. And so on my pattern pages, I like to feature people who have used really bright colors because I love them, but it's not necessarily what I want to wear. So I design also what I want to wear.
Yeah, and this is just this is gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's very natural and very neutral. Yeah. Just subtle differences between the white and then getting darker with the grey.
Yeah, there's 3 shades.
Now, there's another question. How do you know whether you're going to do a new design, top down or bottom up?
Good question. Well, it depends on the direction of the stitches. Like this one here, for these twiggy things, I wanted the stitches pointing upward. So that's why I decided to do this one top down provisional. And also I did the same for this one. Where I guess usually it would just be bottom up, but I decided to try that method. My fern and feather, it has similar kind of twiggy clamps, but they're pointing downward. So I learned how to do top-down construction because I tried it bottom up and it didn't look good.
So it's all on where, and that's top down
this
too.
is too, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's all on whether the V's are going upwards or downwards.
Yeah,
And
so I felt these looked best from the top down as well.
that's cool. It gives you an extra thing to play with and design
it's
with.
probably perfectionism, and it probably doesn't matter as much as I think it does.
I think it does. So tell us a little bit about your process, because you told me before that you don't swatch.
I don't swatch, so I have in the past. Like I swatched for this one, and I'm glad I did, because the swatch I did ahead of time, the colors weren't working and the motifs weren't that good. This is basically one of my first designs, my second, I think. And now I don't tend to swatch because I just want to get to the knitting, but I do a lot of ripping. So because I can't erase my mistakes, like with a drawing, I kind of figure out where my shaping is going to go while I'm knitting the yoke and kind of modify my chart as I go. So sometimes a yoke works out and I don't have to rip a lot. Sometimes I rip a yoke quite a bit.
And it does give you just a bigger picture,
Yeah, I
doesn't
can see
it?
the bigger picture.
And that can make a big difference.
Right.
I've noticed that on something I'm recently knitting, that I wish I'd done my swatch bigger.
Right.
Because I might have changed my colours. But yeah, okay, that's really interesting. Now, if some people do say that yoke sweaters don't suit them, so if someone's wanting to make a yoke sweater but feels like somehow it doesn't fit their body, how would you advise them if they're wanting advice?
Right. Well, some petite women don't like when the yoke goes down over their bust because they feel like it's kind of making them look flat in that area. So if that's what you prefer, you can just do a yoke with just a small amount of motif up here.
Yeah, this
like
or smaller.
this one. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And then the style right now is for the yoke to kind of go down and hit kind of above the bust, or like on part of the bust almost. So a lot of my designs lately are fitting that way, and they have a lot of ease, and anybody can wear them. They're comfortable. I love them. And so if you're busty, I think that that's a good option, because and if you don't want to call a lot of attention to that area, kind of having the yoke kind of sit further down is flattering.
And sometimes also just getting a flowing look means that you just go down to a smaller gauge, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, definitely. Like a fingering weight.
weight.
Yes, definitely.
Instead of chunky or Aran even, just go finer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's been so cool to hear your perspective, and lots of lucky people are going to take a class with Jenn during the festival. So that's really exciting. So we have to finish now, but this is your first time in Europe and your first time in Edinburgh. It's super exciting for you.
Thanks.
So tell us, how long are you staying here, and what are some of the things that you look forward to doing?
So my whole trip is 10 days, and I've been here for a few days already. I've been checking out the architecture, and I plan to check out more. I can't wait to teach my classes and go to the festival. I want to see the yarn, of course, and the knitters. And also I'm planning on meeting up with a few designer friends that I can't wait to see as well.
That'll be super exciting. And hopefully if you get a chance to go out and see a castle or so, because there's not many castles in America.
Right. No.
And once you see one, they're kind of... They're crazy, yeah.
Totally.
Because as an Australian, we're just completely enamored with castles, as you can see on the podcast. Anyway, it's been a super treat to have you with us, so thank you so much.
Thank you. I had a blast.
Good. Okay, bye.
Bye.
pop in one last time with you before we say goodbye for this episode, because we're very happy to announce that Jennifer is offering Fruity Knitting patrons a 25% discount on any of her self-published patterns in her Ravelry store. Her patterns are very well written and very well fitting, and they are a great introduction to stranded knitting. There is at least 16 different gorgeous stranded yoke sweaters to choose from, so enjoy looking through her store.
Yep, and thanks very much for being with us today. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.
Bye.